to the Divine Feminine Podcast, where I am your host, Priestess Haneera Abunu. Here I support women in learning and applying the Divine Feminine principles into their lives. We talk about lifestyle, family, culture, and spirituality, all from a traditional African perspective. Welcome to the safe space. Come on in, wherever you are welcome into this space and time. Right now, this is the Divine Feminine Podcast, and today, forgive the acoustics. I'm having to adjust to quarantine. So today I'm not in the studio, so the acoustics on this audio may be a little different than what I've delivered to you in the past. So forgive me for that. But just know that I'm committed to still giving you a word in this time. And this particular podcast today was driven more behind some of the comments and feedback that I've been getting from people online, and I wanted to take a moment and answer one of the questions that I've been getting. One second. And so one of the questions I received was, what is the importance of the ancestral altar? And that question is very timely. And so I thought I would take the opportunity and just cover it in a podcast, because that's what we do. So I received the question online, and you guys can feel free to do that. You can email me at divinefeminine.podcast@gmail.com. You guys can message me online, Instagram, on Facebook, and give me your questions. Give me your feedback on any of the episodes. And more importantly, wherever you are in your spiritual walk, in your journey, especially right now, you can reach out to me and we have a conversation or dialogue about it. And so this particular question was important because of the time that we're in right now. And some of you are, wondering, what is an ancestral altar? What is all of that? So I was thinking, I said, well, we'll just break that down. We'll dissect it small bit by small bit, and really unfold what is meant by ancestral altar. Why do we have ancestral altars, and what's the benefit, and why is it necessary in this time, and why is the call, and how does that fit with last week's podcast as well? If you guys remember, if you haven't listened to episode 3, you should listen to episode 3, where we talked about the temples, and the name of it is Temple Speaks, and it's where the traditional temples in Africa kind of came together, the priests there, and released a statement. And that's important because right now our religious leaders don't have the answers. It's the priests, it's the shaman, it's the traditional indigenous leaders that we need to turn to. I am a priestess. There are other people trained like me, And I come from temples that are rooted in the bellies of West Africa. And so I'm going to the elders, listening, hearing from the elders, and they listen to the earth, and what the celestial bodies are saying, what the earth's energy is saying in this time. They are reading and listening and receiving their guidance from the earth and Almighty. And so I shared that message with you guys last week. So if you didn't listen to episode 2, you should take time and listen to episode 2. I'm sorry, that would be episode 3. Episode 2 and 3, but Temple Speak is episode 3. And this episode, going over the importance of an ancestral altar, is in relation to that. So let's kind of go into it. First, I'd like to, for those who, maybe are new on their spiritual walk, we want to kind of go through, what is an ancestor? Because some people may not know exactly. And, an ancestor is a descendant of yours, or you descend from that person. So it's a person who you share their blood. It is a relative of yours that precedes you. And normally when we talk about ancestor, we're talking about at least a generation above your grandparents. But it could, be anyone who has passed away. For the sake of this discussion, we'll say that ancestor is anyone who has transitioned this realm and passed on. Those of you who may be more spiritually advanced, you may have a deeper understanding. So remember that this is just for those on a basic level who are trying to understand the whole concept of ancestor and what we mean when we say ancestral altar. And so we're simply just talking about your relatives, your family members, the people whose blood you share. They pass down their blood, their traits, their physical features, their spiritual features. They passed all of those down to you, and you're carrying them right now. You share them. They are the same as you, and you are the same as them. Those are your ancestors. And why is it important to know who your ancestors are? This is also, a question that we need to ask ourselves and also know the answer to. It's important for us to know our ancestors because it gives us help in understanding ourselves, right? On your spiritual journey, it's all about raising your quality and fulfilling your destiny and becoming who you were here and who you are supposed to be, and raising the quality of your blood. And how do you do that? How do you do that if you first don't know who you are? knowing your ancestry helps to give you a sense of stability. It helps to stabilize you in this world. You know, where we come from is important, and I'm talking about, the people in which we come from, talking about, starting with our mother, starting with our father, knowing who our mother is and knowing who our father is important, because those are our first direct parents, right? Knowing all of their characteristics, the traits that we got from them, all of the history and stories that come with knowing your mother and your father, having their blessing, that's important. And then we go above them to their parents, the grandparents, knowing and understanding your family and where you come from helps you to understand you. All of the characteristics of your blood. Do you guys have a pointy nose? Do you guys have a wide nose? What is your temperament? What is your pedigree? What is your body structure? All of those are important, because we're in this life and we're moving about and we become encountered with other human beings and they look different than us. They move different than us. And how does that, do we feel confident in the skin and the body that we're in? Do we feel confident in the skills and the abilities that we have? That is important to know who you are, because as you move about in this life, it will help give you stability as you encounter others around you. It will give you the boldness and the confidence that you need, because you know whose shoulders you're standing on, right? So that also can echo out past your family into your ethnic group, your clan, your category of race, if you like to say. Where are you from? Every group of people has certain norms about them. They have certain ways that they move about in society. They have certain morals, their moral code, the way they worship the divine. All of those things may vary depending on where your family lineage is from. And that's important, to understand your culture, because it's a part of who you are. And I'm not talking about a culture, a new culture, or a culture that may be foreign to you. I'm talking about the culture that originally gave birth to your forefathers, right? And this is, some of us are adopted. Some of us only know one parent, or some of us don't know either parent, and that leaves us in a vulnerable state as human beings. It leaves us unstable in knowing who we are. And so we have to set about the search of finding who we are, because that gives us our belonging, our stability, and more importantly, it starts to shape and mold our identity. And identity is important. Let's talk about identity for a moment. Identity is the fact of being. It's what a person is or what a thing is. How do you identify? What is used to identify you? Those components that make up your identity are critical. Knowing your identity as a human being is critical. And so understanding your family, knowing the names of your relatives, being able to go back as far back in generations as you can in your family tree is important. Even if you're a descendant of Africans that were brought here from Africa against their will, even if that is your history, you still have a right or obligation to your identity. And I would say that in this time and space, the pull on us to find our identity has heightened or increased. I would venture to say that with the way the world is going on now, more of us have been called or pulled or having the thoughts of, who am I? Where do I come from? Where do I get these traits from? How do the people that are like me respond? Where can I find others that are like me? That's important because we're living in unnatural times. So identity is important, and knowing your family history and the traits help you identify yourself. So you have the human being, the person. Knowing who you are as a person, in order to understand that, you must go outside of yourself, because you are not self-contained alone. You were created by two family lines, and many, many unseen things came together to create you. And so you must go outside of yourself, of your own thinking and what you say that you are or know, to understand your family, to be able to understand yourself. And then importantly, or moreover, I would say, going past your family, you have your culture, your clan, your nationality, your country, your language. All of these things help to know your identity. And in knowing your identity, one of the first, and it's not the only, but one of the first things you want to have in identifying yourself is a name. It's a name. What is your name? The name holds a person's identity. What do you think about yourself? What do you know about yourself? What are the characteristics about yourself? What are the traits? As a priest, I know this to be also what spirits walk with you. Right? All of these make up the human being's identity. And with the name and building on the identity or knowing the identity, it is the first. Well, let me say this. So I'll back up a little bit. Traditionally, the naming process, or when a family is welcoming a child, a man and a wife, they're welcoming a child. The welcoming process, traditionally, it's not the parents that come up with the name. And you may say, well, it's their child. Why wouldn't they come up with the name? Well, because traditionally, you want the name to be reflective of the identity of the child. So what characteristics is this child coming with? What mission are they coming with? What is it about their personality that will help them on this life? What are the components of this particular baby that they're coming with? That is what make up the name. So traditionally, when a child is born, they go to the priest, and the priest reads the child's energy, reads the child's destiny. They can give the parents information about what that child's mission is, what they're here to do, some of the struggles the child will be having. They'll also help the child in understanding the energy that's coming. Tell me about this child that's in my womb. Is this a reincarnation of a previous relative? If so, who? Traditionally, you can go to a priest and they can give you that information. That information is vital to raising and supporting and the stability of a human being. And normally, that information is sought out by the parents. Some information is given while the child is still in the womb. Other information won't be accessible or able to read until shortly after the child is born and has already transitioned into this world or this dimension and been born. And so it's with that information that the name is given. And so the name will represent the identity and the mission of that child. And so that's important. I believe it was on episode 2. I spoke about my names and what they meant briefly at the end of episode 2, I believe. And said with the different initiations I was going through, how a name was given or chosen, and that was part of the identity that I came with. Some of that was unique to the priesthood, but again, like I just explained about the human being, some of that information is given to the parents traditionally. and these are traditions that are in customs and cultural norms of African people, and traditions all over that are still being upheld. They're still being respected and upheld. So if any of you have children out there or are pregnant and would like this information, you guys can reach out to me, and I'll help you in getting that information for your young one. But the name in the identity. And so you see, it's not as simple as, going through Google and saying top 10 names for 2020. It's not as simple as, the mother and the father deliberating on, what they think the child should be called. Because honestly, every time you call that child's name, you are calling on the destiny and the energies of that child to stand up and to move forward and be present in their life. And so think of some of the names that we name our children in society today. Think of how we've come about naming the last 2 generations. How have we done that? I look at the cognacs and the Mercedes and some of these names, the Beyoncés, and what are we invoking on our children? Your name has to have meaning, and not a random meaning, right? Because words have concepts, and they hold meaning, just words themselves. So the name itself will have a concept and a meaning that it holds. But what concept and power are you calling out, or is called out every time your name is called? That's important. And traditionally, the naming of a person is held sacred, because all of the components of that child and their personality is in that name. Now this is, we're talking about identity as it relates to the first name, but this is also true with your family name. This is also true with your bloodline. This is why understanding your lineage, your forefathers, your ancestors, this is why it's so important. Because in knowing and understanding your blood and knowing the name of your bloodline, every time you call that name, it has a certain power that comes with it. There's a certain level of stability that comes with the human being when you know all of the components and what that name holds. So it's important, our bloodline and family names, and some of us, and let me just take a moment and say this, that, some of us, we don't have our original last names. We have names that were given to us, and they don't hold true to the origins of our clan. And so this is why it's important for us to keep expanding our family tree, expanding knowledge of our ancestry so we can get back to those roots. Now, even though you've been given a different name, right? Even though you have a different name, that name now, still hold it with understanding that I am a descendant of my father and my most recent ancestors, yes. And that comes with a certain level of honor and respect. And this is the name it's been attached to for the last 4 or 5 generations. But just have that fullness and understanding that prior to the last 400 years, my lineage goes back, and there's a bloodline and a clan that this bloodline ties to. And so when you call the name, say Jones, or Smith, or whatever that given last name is, you need to have the understanding that yes, you're talking about all of your direct ancestors that have held that last name for the last 400 years, but you're going way past that. And you're calling to your ancestry. So this is important. And I say this kind of jumping ahead, saying when you call it out, getting to the altar part, but just wanting to make clear, that we can't, that even though we have been given, say, our slave master's name, for those of us who have that in your history, it goes deeper than just the name. Yes, you have pride and respect in your forefathers and what was the identity that they had to take. But you, as the child now carrying the blood, have the obligation to go deeper and find the ancestry. And so that's where it becomes important. That's where the identity comes. And so when you learn your identity, when you learn your name, when you call out that name, it gives power. It gives power and stability to the human being. It calls out to all of the traits, features, the gifts that your blood has. That's what it calls out to. And that's important. You need to know that. A lot of times we get caught in the physical. Like, oh, I have my mother's eyes, or I have my father's complexion, or, my height comes from, this side or that side, but it goes deeper than that. There's physical components that put us together, but there's also the non-physical, the spiritual components that put us together. And those spiritual components are very complex, but they are with you as well. There's different spirits that make that up, different aspects of the human being that make you up on the unseen world, and it varies from bloodline to bloodline. And so I encourage each of you to start to put together your family tree, to start to collect your family photos of your relatives who have transitioned and are no longer in this realm, especially now, right? And I say especially now because we're in the month of April. We're in about mid-April right now, 2020. And our world is different than it's ever been. The world is experiencing a pandemic is what they're calling it. So I'll call it that too. They're experiencing this outbreak of this coronavirus, which has taken several lives. I think at this point we're up to maybe 180,000 lives. You know, we're up to a really high, and this is just number of people who have suddenly and unexpectedly transitioned because of this plague, so to speak, that is on mankind right now. There's several more people, hundreds of thousands of people that are sick, and we're hoping for them to recover. But right now, there's a lot of people experiencing a tremendous amount of loss because their loved ones are transitioned. Their loved ones have passed away unexpectedly. And so this is important for us to understand how we have to keep our family's memory alive in order to help stabilize ourselves, right? So this talking about the ancestral altar is important for that. You know, for those of us who, while we're talking about the coronavirus and COVID-19, you know, those of us who have been fortunate enough to be at home and be healthy, we also have our own challenges that we're going through. We're at home. Many of us have lost our jobs, and it's put us in a predicament where we're having to reinvent ourselves. And I'm thankful that this is happening, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm thankful. Because it's exposing our vulnerabilities. It's exposing to each of us how far we've been removed from our purpose. And this is important. It's important. It's unfortunate, all the sickness and death. And I'm not making light of that. And I hope to help those who are grieving and who are mourning. So message me if you've been directly affected or had a loved one lost during this time, and I can help you. But right now, just transitioning to the population of people who are just quarantined. We're just quarantined, and we're affected because of job loss. And we're realizing just how dependent we've been on society, how dependent we've been on this system. we realize that quickly our whole lives can be shut down. Our cities can be shut down. Our means of supporting ourselves and our families can be just stopped. And that for some of us has us in a traumatized state. And that trauma is our vulnerability. And so I'm saying that exposing our vulnerability right now is good because it allows us time to work through and understand what's going on. Right now, we realize we need to find our skills. You know, many of us had jobs that were just, or 2 and 3 jobs, not specializing in any passion of ours, just getting by. And now that we don't have those jobs, what skills do we have? What talents can we tap into? Where have we been putting our focus? Has it been on the things that give us great pleasure? Has it been on the things that give us joy? Has it been on the things that are easy to us? I don't know. I don't think so. But now we have that opportunity to do that. And how is that important to understanding your identity and understanding your ancestors, and why having an ancestral altar is so important? Because it's through your bloodline and understanding the identity in which you come from that you learn those gifts, that you begin to seek out and hone in and develop those traits. Are you an artist? Do you have any creativity in you? I would pose that question. Are you an inventor? Can you put things together? Are you a seamstress? Are you a tradesman? Do you work good with your hands? Are you a farmer? Each of our bloodlines were given trades, or traits, I should say, that are unique to them. And not only were you given the traits or unique abilities within your bloodline, but you were given the gifts to go with those traits. So, what does that look like? You would be given certain spiritual gifts to coincide with your natural gifts and what your bloodline is supposed to do. But have we been operating in that? Or have we given away self-mastery and self-development? And have we done away with what our forefathers have done, what our father did, what our grandfather and great-grandfathers did, what our mother and our great-grandmothers? Have we put away what we've seen the elders in our family do, to do something new, to do something different? Are we driven by money? Are we driven by material want? Many of us are sitting around now faced and challenged with that. Instead of living in our gifts and honing in our natural God-given traits, we've traded it all in to be Uber drivers. We've traded it all in to be retail clerks. We've traded all of that in to work behind a desk, expose ourselves to computer screens and radiation all day to do somebody else's work, to help them excel in their gift, to help them to give honor to their ancestors. But are we giving honor to our own ancestors? Are we giving honor to ourselves? Are we giving honor to the blood that we carry in doing what we've been doing? How we've been spending our time? That is for each of us to take a look at right now. And so that's why I say that the COVID-19 quarantine has caused us to go within, and is a good thing because it's exposing our vulnerabilities. Because had we taken those piano lessons and become the musician and the Greco that our family bloodline called for us to be, we would be able to thrive now. Had we been working the land and farming the way our ancestors and our bloodline had, we would be thriving now. Had we been working independently as entrepreneurs in a way that is self-sustaining with our gifts and traits, right now we would be okay. We wouldn't be where we are today. And so this is okay. It's okay to be where we are, but we don't have to stay here. And I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you move past the fear. I'm here to help you to reconnect. I'm here to help guide you on this path. So don't take my words as judgment or as they're harsh or that I'm angry even, because I'm not. I just want to challenge you to think past your current situation. Challenge you to give more thought, deeper thought, as to how we can move through this situation, past the energy that you're in right now, past the grief, past the fear, and we can process it and use it to better ourselves. And when I say ourselves, understand that you are not separate from your ancestors. So to better yourself is to affect your ancestors on the other dimension, on the other side. When I say ourselves, I'm meaning your forefathers. I'm meaning all those who have come before you. They're not separate from you. Do you think that genius that you have, that way about you that makes you unique to your friends, did you think you're the only person in your family that has that? No. There's an ancestor. There's a forefather who's come before you. There's a grandmother that you get that from. And so to raise your quality and to make you a better person is to raise the quality of your bloodline. And so that's when I'm here to help. And so how can we help? What can we do? We have to be mindful of where we're putting our focus. Where are we putting our energy? You know, part of exposing our vulnerabilities, we have to be honest. And that in that analysis is, where has our energy been? Where have we been focused? Have we been focused on work? And is it a work that serves us? Is it my natural gifts and talents? Have we just been existing and we haven't been putting our energy into anything? Maybe video games or social media, or maybe we've been putting all of our energy into our mates and not into ourselves. Maybe we've been putting all of our energy into even our children and not into ourselves. You have to be aware of where you're putting your focus. And you have to start focusing on yourself more. Now, what do I mean by that? Am I talking or trying to create these egotistical beings? No. I want you to understand your identity. And in order to do that, you have to get to know yourself. Do you know what you like? Do you know what you don't like? Some of us, we wait for the TV to tell us what we like. We wait for our friends to say what they want to order, and then we'll just have the same thing. Some of us don't feel comfortable in having our own identity. Some of us don't feel comfortable or confident in having our own judgment and way of wanting to be. And so we have to know that we get that from our family. So it's important to observe where you come from, your family members, your ancestry. To go back and pick what pieces up you can. And start from there. Because honestly, African people in America, you are no different. I am no different. We are no different than the person who only knows one parent. We are no different. As a collective, I'm speaking. As a collective, we are no different than the child who is adopted in that hunger and search for identity. Because as a collective, as a people, we have lost our identity. I will say our identity was taken from us generations ago. But now we have the ability to find our identity. So whether you know both of your parents and can go back 8 to 10 generations, or whether you don't know either parent, whether you know one parent but nothing else, or whether you know some relatives but not much. Whatever your story is, because each of our journeys is different, we still have the responsibility of knowing who we are and picking up the pieces from where we are. We have to become researchers. Researchers on ourselves, researchers on our families, so inward and outward. You should be spending time with yourself. A lot of us in quarantine, we should be taking this time to be quiet and to find out what we like and to research ourselves, to understand ourselves. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. Hey, I'm pretty good at drawing. I didn't realize that. I'm really drawn to music. Why is that? I want to explore that more. It's time for us to take advantage of the shift and to align ourselves with the shift. So nature is now calling. Our ancestors are now calling out. And it's time for us to align ourselves. And the first step to aligning ourselves with nature, you guessed it, is to align yourself with yourself. And yourself is your ancestors. To truly understand who you are, what gifts and abilities do I come with? What gifts and abilities did my forefathers have? And you can start with your parents. What did they have? Each of us, our journey is going to be different. But it'll help give us our spiritual makeup. It'll help give us our character, our different characteristics, our different gifts and traits, but it'll also uncover our vulnerabilities, where we can improve, where are our moral shortcomings. Those will be exposed to on this search while we're getting to know ourselves and aligning ourselves with nature. Essentially, when we talk about an ancestral altar, right? Because that's what this talk is about. When we talk about an ancestral altar, we're talking about what exactly? What does that look like in this physical domain? What does that look like in reality, right? Sometimes with spirituality, it's not practical. What does an ancestral altar look like in this through the lens of a pragmatic person? It's self-care. Self-care. To acknowledge and to practice taking care of yourself, to acknowledge that taking care of me and my ancestors is necessary. The process of preserving and improving your health, and this is mind, body, spirit, all of this is part of the basics of understanding why an ancestral altar is important, or what we talk about when we talk about having an ancestral altar. In African traditions, and this can be seen, I'm an African woman, and so I speak from an African perspective. However, traditions, indigenous people everywhere have certain common views that are the same. And this is one. Indigenous people everywhere acknowledge and respect and take care of those who came before them. They take care of the elders that came before them, starting with their parents. And some of us have some traumas and some healing that we need to do in order for you to start moving in that energy, to be able to take care of your parents. But honestly, your parents came before you, and you have an obligation, according to your culture and your lineage and who you are as a human being, to do that. And so in African traditions, we acknowledge and respect and care for those who have come before us. Whether this is a senior student or a teacher, someone who has more knowledge than you, who has come before you on the spiritual path or journey. Whether this is, in this example, we're talking about our relatives, our parents, our grandparents. It is our obligation to take care of them. And this is also true about your ancestors. Now, don't think that just because they've transitioned and they're no longer able to be seen in this physical world, that releases you of the obligation of taking care of them. No. You should start taking care of those who come before you before they transition. And I know many of us on our spiritual journey, this may be the first time that these concepts and have been brought to you. This may be the first time that you've heard such things. And that's okay, because this society has removed the ancestral spirit, has removed acknowledging ancestors from its culture and society. So this Western model is not in alignment with nature at all, because it skipped the very first step. The very first step to connecting to something in the unseen is to go through your blood, right? And I can give detail to later as to why that is so. Or if you'd like to know why that is so, and I can give you a personal message, then just message me and I'll reply. So we don't see ourselves as separate from our ancestors. We are our ancestors. So to have an ancestral altar is to have a place where you acknowledge yourself and everything that comes with you. and it's not separate from you. Your grandparents, grandmothers, fathers, they are you. You have all of their traits and abilities. You do the same things that they do. Some of the stories that you'll hear as you start to put together your family tree, some of those stories, you could see yourself in that, or you've done those things. And why is that? Because you guys share the same spiritual components. They've given it to you. So in acknowledging and taking care of them spiritually, you're also taking care of yourself. In traditions, we remember them. We give them offerings. And we do this in conjunction with taking care of ourselves, with preserving ourselves, preserving our health, protecting our well-being. We do all of this in acknowledging our ancestors and taking care of them. And what do we get in return? Because everything in existence is about an exchange of energy. Right? So we're giving this energy up to those who have come before us. And what do we get in return? There's always an exchange. We get protection. We get guidance, wisdom, enlightenment, awareness, and of course alignment with the divine plan, because your ancestors are the key to accessing the divine, accessing God. They are your, as one scholar liked to call them, they are your angels, your messengers to the different divinities. And so because of that, they create that dialogue between you and the unseen world. Very, very important component. They also provide stability. They give the human being confidence. Knowing who you are and knowing that you have the support of those who have come before you. Not just a belief, but a knowing. That gives a very, very strong confidence. It removes fear, any uncertainty or doubt, and it replaces it with courage and resilience. This is important. This is what we need right now. This is timely. And so I'll end the podcast here, but I will say, and we went a little over in this particular podcast. Normally I try to keep them at about an hour, but this was an important message that needed to come out, and I'm thankful for the question that was posed online. And so if you would like more information on an ancestral altar, what it looks like, what are the components of it, how do I start to put it together, what are the next steps, email me, message me on social media. I'd like to help you, definitely, to set up your altar, to guide you and teach you along that process, because there are things that need to be in place in your life with the self-care before that I suggest, before even embarking on creating your altar. And if you're listening and you already have an altar, but maybe your altar hasn't been activated, I can help you with activating your altar. I'm able to activate your altar. Or if you would like to go deeper, say you have your ancestral altar, but you've kind of plateaued and you don't know where to go from here. You have it, but what next? I can help you further go deeper into ancestral veneration. So today has been another podcast, another successful podcast with the Divine Feminine. This is episode 4. I appreciate you coming into this safe space, and I look forward to speaking to you again next week. Be well. Come join me in April in San Diego for a spiritual retreat weekend. Also, in July, we're going to Africa for a spiritual awakening. Get more information on both events at eventbrite.com. To schedule a spiritual reading or life coaching session, please visit the website at divinefeminine.net. Thank you for listening to the Divine Feminine podcast. Be sure to subscribe, share, and join the conversation on social media. You can find us at Haneera Abunu.